How do you support somebody who comes to you with a report of domestic violence or interpersonal violence? We often in society don't understand how to handle reports like these because I think we're trained to put all of the responsibility for supporting someone who has been a victim of violence on the authorities, on figures like police or the judicial system. In fact, when somebody comes to us with a report that they have been abused or that they've experienced some kind of trauma, the first thing that we do is often react in a negative way. We may react with victim-blaming statements or questions such as, why did you wear that outfit if you weren't, looking to be put into this kind of situation? Or why did you walk alone at night? Didn't you know that that was dangerous? So things like that, questions that can automatically put the victim on the defensive, make them feel ashamed of themselves, and make them not want to come forward. Also, if we suggest that a victim go report their crime to the police or to other authority figures, we're often overlooking the serious danger that people in certain positions might feel when reporting their crime to the authorities. For example, people of color, transgender people of other marginalized communities, undocumented immigrants. All of these are groups that may not feel comfortable going to the police or reporting a crime that has been committed against them to the authorities. We also need to realize that often in situations of intimate partner violence or sexual assault, victims may feel uncomfortable reporting their crime to the police in general because they feel like they won't be taken seriously, or they feel like they may need to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that something has happened to them. When you're in a traumatized state, it may be very, very difficult to act, and it requires a ton of bravery to go step forward and report something that you might feel ashamed of, you might feel guilty, you might feel just traumatized and unable to act, you might freeze up, you might feel afraid. There are all kinds of different situations that the victim could be put in where they may not feel comfortable going to the authorities immediately. So it is our responsibility as their friends, as their family members, as other people in their community to step up and create a safe space for them where they can feel free to report things to us and know that we'll react in a way that is supportive and the way that we would want someone to react to us if we were to report something like this to them. So let's talk about a few ways that you can react better when somebody comes to you with a report of intimate partner violence or some other kind of abuse. The first thing that you should do is to center and validate the other person's feelings. When a victim comes to you, they're often scared, they feel hurt, they may not be very trusting of other people right then, and they may be afraid that you might not take them seriously. Instead of doing things that oftentimes we may react in a negative way, as I mentioned before, be very mindful of things like rationalizing harm by looking at how the person behaved in that situation. So saying, oh, you caused this because you wore a certain type of clothing, or you acted a certain way, or you interacted with that person who was close to you in a certain way. Don't deny the harm that has occurred and frame it as just a misunderstanding. Like, oh, well, I'm sure that they meant well. Oh, I'm sure that you just took what they did in, a negative way. Don't do that. You don't want to minimize what they're saying by saying that it isn't serious or that it doesn't warrant, the kind of feelings that are coming up for them. Saying, oh, well, you were asking for it, or, oh, that's not that bad, or something like that. It is that bad if they feel that bad about it, and any kind of abuse warrants a response. Also, try not to act like the violence will just stop if it's left alone. That minimizes the situation, and it takes the responsibility off of you as the person's friend and confidant to help them in that situation. And it also puts them oftentimes back into that situation because they return to that partner or that friend or whoever it was who committed the act against them, and they feel like they don't have any support. So the first thing you can do is to listen to the person who is coming to you reporting the violence. Listen to them attentively and validate their feelings. Let them know that you're there for them and that their safety is your primary priority. Make sure, beyond a shred of doubt, that they feel safe and that they are not going back into an unsafe situation. It is crucial, especially when somebody is coming to you to report an incident of violence. It's oftentimes more dangerous for them to report than it would be for them to remain silent. So you need to make sure that they feel safe and that you are creating safety around whatever they want to tell you so that they can continue to divulge information about what happened. Number 2 is you need to affirm and validate the person who is a victim in this situation. So believe what they say and don't look for excuses to minimize or trivialize what happened to them. Affirm them, tell them that you're there for them, and remember to validate what they're saying as real. Oftentimes, survivors of interpersonal violence have complex relationships with the people in their lives who commit this violence. Most rape, for example, is committed by someone that the victim knows, and often sexual assault can be perpetrated by people who are very close to the person who has been assaulted. Abuse may be committed by a domestic partner, and in that case, it may be very hard. The person who is being abused may have a complicated relationship where they love and care for that person, but they also still feel like that person has been abusive towards them. These things can coexist, and it oftentimes takes up to 7 attempts for a person who has been a victim of abuse to actually leave that abusive relationship. So you need to be patient with the person who's coming to you reporting this violence and understand that it's your role as their friend not to push them in a certain direction, but just to hear them, validate them, and create a safe space. The next thing you should do is to not force them to go to the authorities immediately. Although you may think that it's in their best interest to do so, they may be afraid, as I mentioned before, to go to the authorities, and they may not be sure that it's the right move for them at this time. That's okay. There are other ways to get justice, and that doesn't just mean that you're going to go out there with a baseball bat and attack their perpetrator. It means that your community can be involved in creating a space for victims to come forward that doesn't have to rely on institutional forms of justice like the police. So consider first not pushing the victim towards that solution. The next thing is don't try to force your ideas on the person who's coming forward. Whatever your ideas about the situation may be, it's your role to listen first. Finally, do whatever you can to anticipate the victim's needs and take care of them. Victims often don't feel like they can come forward with this information, but they also may not be well-versed in self-care techniques, and they may not feel like they're able to take care of themselves in this situation. This could be your role as their friend or family member to listen to them, anticipate their needs, and make sure that they're taken care of in this time of trauma. Finally, be aware that them coming forward may create a lot of danger for them. So it's your job to create a safe space and also be aware that that danger may be directed towards you as well as somebody who's helping them out. So just be aware of this and really try to look for ways to separate yourselves from the perpetrator and do so in a safe way. All right, that's what you should do if somebody comes to you with a report of violence. Thank you.